You've been parked outside this house for 3 hours. You know the schedule by heart. You know what car he drives. You know what time he leaves in the morning. You know his daughter's school drop-off takes 22 minutes, and he always stops for coffee on the way back. You know all of this because knowing everything is the only reason you're still breathing. Your phone buzzes. One word. Now. You start the car. You're a Cartel Sicario. Not the kind from the movies. Not the guy screaming and charging through a door. That guy is already dead. The real Sicario is quiet and precise. He looks like your neighbor. He looks like a delivery driver. He looks like nothing. That invisibility is the most valuable thing you own. But you weren't born with it. You built it. And it cost you everything. You grew up in a town the government forgot about. No paved roads. No real jobs. No future on the horizon. The cartel wasn't a criminal organization to you growing up. They were infrastructure. They paved the streets. They funded the church. They fed families when the harvest failed. When you were 15, a man named El Toro started noticing you. Not in a threatening way. More like a coach watching a player. You were fast. You were quiet. You never talked when you didn't need to. He gives you a job. Nothing serious. Stand on the corner of Cartel Sicario. If you see a police truck, call this number. That's it. You do it. Nothing happens. He hands you $200. You've never had $200 at once in your life. That's how it starts. Not with a gun. With $200 and a street corner that changes absolutely nothing and everything at the same time. Over the next 2 years, you move from lookout to messenger. Packages, envelopes, information. You tell yourself you're not a criminal. You're just delivering things. But El Toro has been watching you the whole time, running his own calculation. One afternoon, he sits across from you at a food stall and tells you he has a different kind of work available. Better paid. More responsibility. You ask what kind. He tells you. You say yes. Before your first job, you spend 3 months at a ranch 2 hours outside the city. There are 8 other men there. Nobody uses last names. Nobody asks where you're from. The man running the training is former military. Everyone calls him El Dochi. He is not warm. He is not cruel. He is efficient. Physical training every morning. Weapons in the afternoon. 2 weeks doing nothing but learning how to move through a space without being noticed. But the training El Doce cares about most isn't physical. It's the rules. You don't drink the night before a job. Not a beer. Not a sip. Clear head. Steady hands. You don't talk about work. Not to your family. Not to anyone. A job happens, and then it disappears. It never existed. You don't make the decision about who. You receive a name, a location, and a time. You carry out the order. The moment you start asking whether the target deserves it, you'll hesitate. In this work, hesitation gets you killed. The last rule, the one El Doce says twice, slowly, you don't let the life get inside your head. The money will come. The respect will come. The day you start believing you're untouchable is the day you become a liability. The cartel doesn't carry liabilities. You memorize the rules the way you once memorized prayers. Not because you're scared. Because for the first time in your life, someone handed you a system. Where you grew up, there was no system, just chaos and poverty and survival. This feels like order. Your first job is a Tuesday. You find out the day before. You don't panic. You go for a walk. You eat dinner. You go to bed at 9. The next morning, you spend 4 hours on reconnaissance. You drive past the location exactly twice, no more. You walk through the area once on foot, dressed like a delivery driver. You map entries and exits. You build what El Doce calls a decision tree. If this happens, you do this. If that changes, you do this instead. You build it until every branch has a plan. By 7 in the evening, you're parked 2 blocks away in a borrowed car wearing clothes you've never put on before. You eat a sandwich. You wait. This, the waiting, is the hardest part. Not because of fear. In the silence, the rules start straining against something. There is a name attached to this job. You are told never to learn more than a name, but you know this neighborhood. You recognize this name. You know this man has a family. The target is not a person. The target is a problem. You are the solution. Everything else is noise. You repeat it until it works. At 9:47, you move. At 10:04, the job is done. By 11, you're home. Showered, clothes in a bag for disposal, sitting on the edge of your bed. You feel nothing. Not relief. Not guilt. Not satisfaction. Just complete emptiness. El Doce told you this would happen. He told you that nothing is what the job requires. The men who feel something after, they don't last. You lie down. You close your eyes. You sleep. By the end of your first year, you've carried out 9 jobs. Word gets back that you're clean, precise, no problems. The cartel doesn't give promotions. They give more work. In this world, that's the same thing. Your handler tells you the boss wants you on more sensitive assignments, higher profile targets, better money. You say yes. Your daily life looks nothing like what anyone would expect. You live in a normal apartment in a normal neighborhood in a medium-sized city. Nothing flashy. You drive a 5-year-old sedan. You tell your neighbors you work in logistics. You wake up at 6 every morning without an alarm. You run 4 kilometers. You eat eggs. You read the news, not for sports scores. For intelligence, military operations, arrests, political changes, anything that could affect your work. You keep 2 phones. One for normal life. One that almost never rings. When the second one rings, everything stops. 18 months in, you notice something you can't unnotice. You know too much, not just about jobs. You know faces. You know names. You know which mayor is on the payroll and which police commander looks the other way on which street. You've been inside enough operations that you're now carrying information that could destroy dozens of powerful people. You are no longer just an asset. You are a risk. You start sleeping in different places. Never the same location more than 3 nights in a row. You memorize the sounds of every neighborhood. The engines, the footsteps, the rhythms. So when something breaks the pattern, your body knows before your brain does. There is a man called Chino, another Sicario, the closest thing to a real friend you have in this world. You've worked separate jobs, passed each other in hallways, shared meals twice. One morning, you call his number. It rings out. You call again that evening. Rings out. You never hear from Chino again. Nobody says his name. Nobody asks questions. He simply stops existing. You understand. That's the retirement plan. 2 years in, a rival organization reaches out through a third party. They've heard about your work. They want you. The money they're offering is 3 times what you're making. New identity. New city. You disappear before your current employer knew you were gone. You have 48 hours to decide. You spend those 48 hours thinking about Chino. You think about every person you've seen disappear from this organization. You think about what you know. You think about who else knows you know it. You call the number back. You say no. Not because you're loyal. Because you've done the math. People who leave this life don't get very far. There's a job 3 days later. Different city. You start the reconnaissance. Drive past twice. Walk the area once. Build the decision tree. Get in the borrowed car. Eat a sandwich. Wait. The phone buzzes. One word. Now. You start the car. and sitting in that car on a street you've never been on before, in a city that doesn't know your name, here's what you know. You're 22 years old. You've made more money than your father made in his entire life. You are feared by men who terrify everyone around them. And you cannot leave. Not because anyone is guarding the door. Not because there's a gun to your head. The door is technically open. But you know what you know. And the people who know what you know don't get to resign. There's no 2 weeks' notice in this work. No handshake at the end. There's only, you are useful, or you are a problem. You have seen, up close, more than once, exactly what they do with problems. 17 jobs ago, you told yourself this was temporary, a way out of poverty. Just for a while. You pull out of the parking spot. The address is already in your head. There is no way out.